So it's usually not often or common that we usually get to see matchups that are highly anticipated coming in, right? They don't come very often. You don't see them very often. But tonight we have one of those matchups. The undefeated 15-0 Cleveland Cavaliers head to Boston to take on the defending NBA champion Boston Celtics. This is a matchup many are looking forward to. I'm excited for it. You're probably excited for it. We get to see two of the top teams in the East square off in an in-season tournament game. And I can't lie to you. I'm super excited for this game. I mean, we're going to get to watch the two best teams in the Eastern Conference square off in what should be a super entertaining game to kind of help determine superiority in the East, right? You got Cleveland coming in undefeated, having a stellar start to the season, and you've got the defending NBA champions, the defending Eastern Conference champions as well. So going into Boston, I'm excited to see how this game is going to play out. Maybe it'll determine the pecking order in the East. So, before that game gets underway this evening, I wanted to kind of go into how I expect the game to unfold, what I expect to be most important going into the game, and honestly also pick a winner for tonight as well. So without further ado, let's get into it. So to kick things off, I kind of wanted to contextualize, both teams' success coming into this game, this highly anticipated matchup here early in the regular season, right? I wanted to contextualize both teams and how they've played, how well they've played, what's been their strengths, how they've been able to sustain the level of success that they've had earlier on in the season, starting with the Cavaliers, right? Now, obviously, we discussed at length the Atkinson effect in my last video in detail, hiring of Kenny Atkinson for this Cleveland team and the wonders that it did for them so far earlier on in the season. I mean, they started the season 15-0. This is the second best start, any team has ever had in the NBA to start a season, right? Second, but it's tied for second best with, the Houston Rockets in 93-94 and the Washington Capitals back in 1949, right? So only four other teams have started a season this hot, started a season this well. So like I said, they're tied for second place with the Washington Capitals in 1949 and the Houston Rockets in 1993-1994, and currently trail the Golden State Warriors, the 2015-2016 Golden State Warriors, who ended up starting that season 24-0 en route to going 73-9. So definitely great to be mentioned in history. If you're the Cleveland Cavaliers, to have a historic start to this magnitude is definitely not something to scoff at, and you have to give them their props for that. In addition to making history in terms of a team start record-wise, we also have to acknowledge that this is the best start for a new head coach coming into a new team in NBA history as well. Kenny Atkinson's 15-0 start with these Cleveland Cavaliers is an NBA record for a new head coach with a new team. So definitely have to give them their props in how they've made history so far through these first 15 games. But like I said, I wanted to delve into why and how they're doing it. Well, how are they doing it? With being number 2 in the league in net rating, right? Net rating is the difference between your offensive rating and your defensive rating. The Cavaliers this season are plus 11.5 in net rating to start the year in these first 15 games. They lead the league in point differential. They lead the league in points off turnovers. So they're doing a good job on both sides of the floor, and they're turning over the opponent and getting out in transition and running, right? So more to that point, more to the success that they had. If you look there at the stats there on the graphic on the left side there, the Cavaliers are first in points per game. They're 7th in defensive rating. They're 22nd in rebounding, not where they want to be. They could definitely maybe get more boards, but that's neither here nor there. They shoot 52.4% from the field, which is first in the NBA. They shoot 41.9% from three, which is also first in the NBA. They average 38.6 bench points per game, which is 6th in the NBA, and average 53.6 paint points, which is 4th in the NBA. So they're getting it done literally all over the court. They can beat you with three. They can get you inside. Their bench is solid. And then on top of that too, in the last video that I made, like I said, the link is in the description. The last video I made, they were 12th in pace coming out of that video, which was documenting their first 9 games of the year. They are currently 7th in pace. So they've increased their standing in terms of how fast they've been playing so far in the season. So they're playing fast, they're turning you over, they're shooting the three well, they're getting in the paint, they're finishing strong around the rim, shooting 52.4% from the field. They lead the league in points per game. They're 7th in defensive rating. They're top 10 in defensive rating. This is a team that is all around just a well-oiled machine. And if you want more detail on how they're doing it, you can check out my video, The Atkinson Effect. Like I said, the link is in the description below. But that is from the Cavaliers' perspective, right? That's how they're doing it so far this season. Now let's take a look at their opponent. Let's contextualize Boston and how they're having a sustained level of success coming off the championship that they won last season. Boston Celtics, the defending NBA champion Boston Celtics, they've started this season 11-3, a solid start to the year. They would be first if it weren't for the undefeated Cavaliers. They're 11-3. They're second in points per game and second in offensive rating. They're fourth in net rating. They're 14th in second chance points, right? The second least amount of turnovers per game so far this season. This is a team that takes care of the ball, right? So, we were talking about Cleveland being a team that turns you over and has the most points off turnovers, but this is a Boston team that doesn't turn the ball over very often, right? And they're fourth in point differential. You take a look at the stats there on the left side, like I had with the Cavs, right? Like I said, second in points per game. They're top 10 in defensive rating. They're 10th. They average 42.8 rebounds per game. So like the Cavs, kind of on the lower tier, the bottom third of rebounds per game. They're shooting 45.9% from the field, which is 16th, middle of the road. 37% from three, which ranks the 9th in the league, top 10 once again from three. They average 29.9 bench points per game. That is on the lower tier, right? That's on the lower third. I wonder if that's an advantage Cleveland is going to have. We'll go more in depth when I kind of compare the keys to the game going forward. They average 40.9 pace point per game, which is near the bottom of the league, and they're 25th in pace. This is a team that is one of the best ISO teams in the NBA, right? When I take a look at this Boston team, they do like to ISO a lot. They rank fourth in frequency of isolation in the NBA, and they rank first in points per possession in isolation in the NBA. So an ISO heavy team, and I consider that relevant because Cleveland themselves, they're not the greatest team when defending the isolation. They're middle of the road in defending isolation in the NBA at 14th. So I wonder if that's an advantage that Boston has, right? So play styles off the bat, I definitely think are going to be interesting to kind of see, right? Boston is a team that kind of has an emphasis on the isolation aspect of the game. Cleveland is a little leans heavier into the pick and roll to kind of get the ball moving, trying to prioritize drives, getting back to drives to the basket, kicking out to shooters. So I'm very curious to see how these play styles match up going into this game. So exciting to kind of see that aspect, that element of it coming in, right? They're 25th in pace, right? They don't want to play at a super fast pace. If you remember in that video, towards the end of my Atkinson Effect video, I said one of the key challenges, one thing that I want to watch with this Cavalier team is what happens when a team slows down the pace. A team like Boston doesn't turn the ball over very often, plays a little bit heavier in the isolation, and then on top of that too, doesn't get out and run much. How does Cleveland fare when that play style is changed? Because a lot of their points come from, like I said, points off turnovers, getting out on the break and running, coming in transition. So I'm very, very intrigued by this matchup because I do think Boston has a style to slow down Cleveland, specifically if they want to get this game more in the half court, a little less out in transition, a little less running. So I'm excited to see how that's going to play out this evening. So now we've contextualized how these teams the style that they play, how they've had success, and what to expect coming in. So what are the keys to this game? What are we going to look for that'll determine how these teams match up against one another, and what play style, what key to each element of the game is an advantage for which team, and which team ultimately I expect to take advantage of these keys to the game that I'm about to list here and ultimately win. So the game tonight is slated for a 7:30 tip time on TNT, right? And what do I expect? What are the keys to this matchup? Well, controlling the pace, right? One team plays at a super high pace, the other team plays at a super low pace, right? So to me, when we take a look at what's going to help determine this game, right, it's going to be the pace. Is this going to be more of a fast-paced game where I think Cleveland definitely has the advantage, or will this be slower paced, right, where Boston kind of has a little bit more of an advantage in kind of slowing the game down through isolation, which is the second element, the second key to the game, right? Isolation production, right? How is Cleveland, who is a middle-of-the-road team defensively when defending the isolation, how are they going to adjust? How are they going to defend Boston when it comes to them being an ISO-heavy team? Now, Cleveland may or may not be without Isaac Okoro. They're already going to be officially out without Dean Wade in this matchup. So I am definitely curious to see if a guy like Jason Tatum, who is one of the best ISO players in the NBA this season, I want to see how he is going to help affect this game with the fact that there's no sizable wings that Cleveland has, no experienced sizable wings that Cleveland has to match up with not just him, but Jaylen Brown as well. Now, Jason Tatum, having an MVP caliber season, you can't say enough about how well he's played, averaging 29.7 points per game, 5.9 assists, 7.9 rebounds, shooting 46% from the field, a career high in assists for him, by the way, 38% from 81.8% from the free throw line. He's doing quite well, leads the team in scoring, leads the team in rebounds, leads the team in assists, having a very good year. So when I take a look at Cleveland not having their main wing defenders, who honestly in the first place didn't have a great amount of success against Tatum and Brown in the past, right? When I see that they're not even going to have those primary defenders, that to me is a concern. I think Boston can exploit that depending on whether or not Okoro plays or not. But even if he does play, like I said, I do think Boston has that advantage with not just Jason Tatum, but Jaylen Brown. Now, Jaylen Brown, it's a career high for him in rebounds and assists per game, but at the same time, it's a career low for him in field goal percentage, and he's not shooting well from three as well. So definitely something to watch coming into this matchup. He's not playing particularly well, but I mean, the numbers are still there. He's just not as efficient as he normally is. So when I take a look at that isolation, take a look at it from the isolation perspective, I'm curious to see who has the advantage. I do think Boston has the advantage with potentially exploiting the isolation advantages that they have in guys like Tatum and Brown. And I definitely think that's something that's going to play into their hands coming into this matchup. Now, look at the turnover battle, right? The turnover battle is going to be key. Boston is a team that doesn't turn the ball over very much, and Cleveland is a team that leads the league in points off turnovers. Who is going to win that battle? Will Cleveland be able to turn Boston over, get out and run in transition? To me, that is a key to this game. Can they defend? Obviously, we know they're 7th in defensive rating. Can they play a level of defense that turns Boston over and helps them create those easy opportunities in transition, getting out and running, getting layups, getting those open threes, getting dunks? Is that something they're going to take advantage of coming into this game? So we're going to be paying attention to that as well. Next is controlling the paint. Cleveland is a better paint team this season than Boston is. When you have guys like Jared Allen, who is leading the team in field goal percentage and leading the team in rebounds as well. When you have a guy like Evan Mobley, who is having a career year, career highs across the board in points per game and three-point percentage, right? And even the usage rate as well. When you have a guy like Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, both those guys controlling the paint and patrolling the paint, if you will, because of the fact that they're able to be such effective rim protectors, I think Cleveland has a very good shot, a very good opportunity at controlling the paint and getting easy buckets on the inside, right? The next thing is the three-point line. These are two very good three-point shooting teams. Look, I know Boston is 9th in three-point shooting percentage, but they were 2nd a year ago in shooting the three. They're a very good three-point shooting team. Any night can catch fire. When you got guys like Derek White, Jason Tatum shooting 38.8% from three, right? You've got Peyton Pritchard as well, who is shooting 41.9% from three. These are all guys that can shoot the ball, shoot the lights out of the ball, and are not to be taken lightly. And then from Cleveland's perspective, right, you still got 4 or 5 guys who are shooting over 40% from three, right? Ty Jerome, Karis LeVert, Isaac Okoro, who may or may not play once again, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, all these guys are shooting above 40% from the three-point line, and that definitely does play into their hands. So can they create those easy opportunities and shoot the three better than Boston? And then last but not least, bench production. Boston has not been very effective with their bench thus far this season, and Cleveland has. Cleveland ranks 6th in the league in bench production and bench points per game, right? So when I look at those keys to controlling the game, when I look at those advantages, when I say controlling the pace, I think Boston has the advantage. They have more experience. If they can get into those isolation success, because I have more confidence in their ability to score on, the lack of Cleveland's size, potentially if Okoro doesn't play, because we know Wade also isn't playing, and Strus has been out for the past, 2 months to start the season as well. So not a whole lot of wing depth to match up with Tatum and Brown when it comes to playing in isolation. So I think Boston has the advantage, and therefore has the advantage in controlling the pace, right? The turnover battle, I do trust Boston to turn the ball over less because of the fact that some of Cleveland's more elite defenders won't be present in the game. Now, I do think we're going to see a lot more of maybe Evan Mobley on Jason Tatum, or maybe Jared Allen switches out on Jason Tatum. Can that work? Can that be something that kind of gets Cleveland going defensively? I'm not sold on it. Jason Tatum has had a history of actually doing quite well against bigger defenders. So it'll be interesting to see how that progresses, how that is going to play itself out in tonight's game, right? The turnover battle, like I said, so these first three kind of fit into one another, right? Controlling the pace, isolation, and the turnover battle. If Cleveland can't force turnovers and get out in transition, then they're going to have to play a lot in the half court. And I'm not saying that Cleveland can't play in the half court. I am very interested in seeing how that looks for a team like Boston, who I definitely think can slow them down, but it's definitely not playing to the strength of playing with pace, right? Getting out and running in transition. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how that plays out in the three-point line. I think Cleveland shoots the three ball very well. I think that's going to continue going into Boston. I think they have that advantage, and I think they have the advantage off the bench as well. So I'm very intrigued. This game it's a really tough one to call. I am going to lean Boston, right? Coming into making this video, I was going to pick Cleveland, but with the news that Wade might be out, or Wade is out, and Okoro might be out, guys who are necessary for guarding a Jason Tatum, for guarding a Jaylen Brown, it's hard for me to wrap my head around smaller defenders, even bigger defenders, matching up and having a level of success against Boston coming into tonight's game. So I'm leaning towards Boston. I think they have those advantages based off what we discussed were going to be the keys for the game. But I could see it going either way. I could see it being a coin toss, right? Because at the end of the day, if Cleveland shoots the ball well, if they shoot the three ball well, if Donovan Mitchell, who's been having a stellar season, rises to the occasion and plays the way he has been playing. I mean, this is a guy that is averaging 24.6 points per game, 4.4 boards, 4.1 assists, right, off 46.9% shooting from the field and 42.1% shooting from three. So if he has a big game, Cleveland definitely stands a chance. And Darius Garland, who's had a very, very solid year, in addition to Evan Mobley, who's had an outstanding year. Darius Garland having career years in both field goal percentage and three-point percentage. And then, like I said, Evan Mobley and Jared Allen both in the paint. That's going to be an X factor as well. And Karis LeVert too. Karis LeVert himself is having a very, very good year as well. So, definitely guys that I think will affect Cleveland's level of success, or how successful they can be. But I'm leaning Boston here. I think Boston is going to take it. I think they're going to hand Cleveland their first loss, maybe because Cleveland is just banged up, especially in the wing position. And when you're playing against a team like Boston, that to me is the most important thing. So I'm leaning Boston, but I'm expecting a very, very, very good game nonetheless. But that being said, though, if it does come down to the wire, right, Cleveland is the clutchest team in the NBA this season, right? They have the most amount of clutch wins, 7 clutch wins, the highest win percentage in the NBA, or in the clutch. So it definitely will be interesting to see if Cleveland can keep it close. Will they be able to pull it out at the end? Because they have been the clutchest team in the NBA. But if Boston can kind of pull away, make it a 5-10 11-point lead towards the end, maybe they take it. So like I said, I'm leaning Boston, but at the same time, I definitely think it could be a coin flip, right? The outcome of this game to me is definitely in coin flip territory, and I'm excited to see how it plays out, but that is how I think this game is going to go. Let me know how you think this game is going to go in the comments, and even if Cleveland or Boston wins, how do you think it affects the hierarchy in the East? Are Boston and Cleveland teams to beat, or are the Knicks going to get it together? The Knicks are there, right? Is Philly going to get it together? Will Milwaukee get it together? Let me know in the comment section below, and we'll see you next time. But until next time, we hope you keep it inside the lines.